So imagine waking up after like a massive rattling storm. You know the
Oh,
kind.
yeah, where the wind is just howling all night.
Exactly. You're half awake, wondering if the house is even going to hold together, and then morning comes.
It is just eerily quiet.
Right, so quiet, and you step out onto your front porch to, survey the aftermath. And right there, scattered across your front lawn, are pieces of your own roof.
Oh, that is just a visceral sinking feeling.
It really is. It's pure panic. You spot the missing shingles up top, and your very first instinct, the thing we are all completely conditioned to do is to pick up the phone, right?
Call the insurance carrier and just wait for them to tell you what to do next.
Yeah, exactly. But we were unpacking some really intense research today that argues that very instinct is completely wrong.
Completely backward, really,
Right. And doing that could easily cost you like a $30,000 claim before an adjuster even sets foot in your driveway.
which is staggering to think about.
It is. So welcome to today's custom-tailored deep dive. Our source material is a short, highly provocative piece titled, Why Your Initial Roof Inspection is a Lie. And our mission today is to extract the exact strategy it outlines to protect your property and, well, your wallet.
It's a really crucial strategy for anyone listening.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the text sets this scene of post-storm panic perfectly, but then it hits the brakes and says that calling the carrier and just passively waiting is literally the worst possible move you can make.
Well, the source material targets a vulnerability we basically all share. When we experience a crisis, especially, sudden damage to our home, our immediate psychological reaction is to seek an authority figure to take control.
Yeah, someone to just come fix it.
Exactly. We inherently view the insurance company as, like, the cavalry riding over the hill to rescue us. We assume their process is designed to return our lives to normal as quickly as possible.
Right, because we pay them every month for that exact reason.
Precisely. But the central conflict established right at the top of this material is that this reflexive move, this innocent act of handing the reins over to the insurance carrier and just waiting, is a massive financial liability.
Wait, a liability? Just calling them.
Yeah. You are essentially turning over the initial framing of the disaster to an entity whose financial interests are, frankly, directly opposed to yours.
Okay, that immediately makes me look at the language the author uses, because there's this really intense framing around the insurance adjuster.
There is, yeah.
They talk about waiting for their adjuster, and the word "their" is explicitly placed in quotation marks in the text. But I have to push back a little on the sheer drama of this.
Oh, sure.
Like, the title says the initial inspection is a lie. Is it actually a malicious lie, or is it just an inherent conflict of interest that we're all just kind of naive to?
That's a fair question.
To me, waiting for the insurance company's adjuster feels a bit like playing in the championship game of your life, and the referee who is making all the calls secretly works for the opposing team.
Right. And gets a bonus every time you lose a point.
Exactly. But is it a lie or just a really biased referee?
Well, the referee analogy captures the conflict of interest, but looking at it through the lens of a sports match might actually understate the systemic nature of what the text is exposing.
Ugh, how so?
It is more akin to a corporate audit. The adjuster is not a referee looking to enforce fairness. They are an auditor tasked with mitigating loss for their employer.
Oh, wow. Okay, that frames it differently.
Right. And what's fascinating here is the deliberate use of those quotation marks around their adjuster. The text is actively trying to break the homeowner's illusion of neutrality.
Because we do think they're neutral. We tend to think of an adjuster as an objective inspector.
Exactly. Almost like a building code official or, a meteorologist coming out to merely record the scientific facts of the weather event.
Right, just taking notes on what the wind did.
Yeah. But the source establishes an immediate adversarial relationship to counter that assumption. The adjuster is deployed to protect the carrier's bottom line.
So they aren't there to help you maximize your claim.
Not at all. The lie, as the title frames it, is the unspoken institutional promise that the initial inspection is being conducted for your benefit. The text wants you to wake up to the reality that this inspection is fundamentally designed to establish the smallest possible scope of damage.
I see. So the system isn't necessarily evil, it's just operating on metrics that actively penalize the homeowner.
That's a good way to put it.
Because if their job is to write the smallest check possible, then relying on their documentation is just asking to be shortchanged. If you let the person who owes you money be the only one who keeps the ledger, You're going to find some very creative accounting.
You absolutely will.
And the text specifically cites that this dynamic can cause a $30,000 claim to just evaporate. That is life-changing money for most people.
It is. It's the difference between a safe home and a financial crisis.
But practically speaking, I have a hole in my roof right now and it's raining. What does the text expect me to actually do before I call them?
Well, the source doesn't just leave us hanging. It demands we beat the insurance company to the punch.
Okay, how?
We are told we must execute the independent documentation protocol before their adjuster even sets foot on your lawn.
Okay, before they set foot on the lawn. Why is the timing so aggressive?
The timing is absolutely paramount to this strategy. The text stresses that phrase because the first party to document the scene basically controls the narrative of the claim.
Oh, that makes sense, because things change, right?
Exactly. When you suffer roof damage, the evidence is highly volatile. Wind continues to blow, rain washes away debris, and temporary fixes, like throwing a blue tarp over the hole to stop the leaking.
Which you have to do to stop the water.
Right. But doing that can obscure the actual structural impact of the initial event. So if you wait 2 weeks for their adjuster to arrive, the scene has degraded.
And they use that against you.
They do. They might look at a weathered tear in the underlayment and classify it as long-term wear and tear rather than sudden storm damage, simply because the fresh evidence is just gone.
Man, that is frustrating. But here's where it gets really interesting to me. The text lays out the specific requirements of this independent documentation protocol.
Right. The photos, video, timestamps.
Yeah, but I mean, is taking a bunch of pictures on your phone really enough to be called a capital P protocol? The language is so formal.
It is very formal.
It sounds exactly like building an alibi in one of those true crime detective shows. You know the ones.
Oh, absolutely.
A suspect says, "I was at the diner across town," but the detective says, "Prove it." And if the suspect doesn't have a receipt with the timestamp printed on it, or security footage with the glowing digital clock in the corner, that alibi effectively does not exist.
It's basically hearsay to the detective.
Right. Is that what this protocol is essentially doing for your roof?
Yeah.
Providing the digital clock in the corner.
The true crime analogy works perfectly for understanding the timeline. But we have to remember we are dealing with financial auditors, not homicide detectives.
Good point.
An auditor doesn't need to prove you committed a crime. They just need to find a technicality to deny the expense.
Just a tiny loophole.
Exactly. This is why standard smartphone photos are often insufficient and why the text elevates this to a protocol.
So a regular iPhone picture isn't enough.
Often, no. When forensic adjusters look at a standard photo of a missing shingle, they can easily argue, well, how do we know this photo wasn't taken 3 years ago during a different storm?
Wow, they'll really say that.
Oh, yeah. Or they'll say, how do we know this is even your house? A true protocol requires unassailable metadata. We are talking about utilizing specific apps that embed unalterable EXIF data exchangeable image file format data directly into the image file.
Okay, so what does that data actually show?
This data locks in the exact GPS coordinates, the altitude, the precise time down to the second, and the date.
So you are basically building a digital padlock around the facts.
That's a great way to describe it.
You aren't just taking a picture of a broken shingle. You are capturing a wide video, showing the street sign, panning to your house number, walking up to the damage, and doing it all with a system that proves you did it on the morning of the 15th, immediately after the storm passed.
Exactly. That level of detail removes the subjective interpretation from the adjuster's toolkit. They can't argue with raw data.
That is so smart.
And when we look at the specific language used here, words like protocol, execute, and battle plan, which we see later in the text, it's highly tactical, almost militaristic.
Yeah, it feels like we're going to war over some shingles.
Well, the author utilizes this terminology to force a psychological shift. Because after a disaster, feeling like a passive victim is entirely natural.
You're in shock, usually.
Right. You are at the mercy of the elements, and then you feel at the mercy of the bureaucracy. So by instructing you to execute a protocol, the text empowers you to become the active defender of your property.
You're taking control back.
Precisely. You are anchoring the upcoming negotiation to your objective reality, leaving the insurance company no room to recontextualize the damage as pre-existing or minor.
Okay, so let's say you've done this. You've got the heavily time-stamped, geolocated photos and videos. You've proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that yesterday's storm caused the damage.
You've executed the protocol.
Right. But that doesn't mean the carrier is just going to smile and write a check for a brand new roof, does it?
Not at all. In fact, securing that initial evidence actually triggers an entirely different hazard.
Yeah, the deep dive warns us about the long-term negotiation and a very specific loophole that insurance companies will allegedly use to keep their payouts tiny. The text calls it the partial repair trap.
This is a critical vulnerability in the claims process. It really is.
How does it catch people who have already done everything right?
It's where many homeowners, even those who have successfully proven the initial storm damage using the protocol we just discussed, still end up losing tens of thousands of dollars on the back end of the settlement.
That is heartbreaking.
It is. The insurance company concedes that the damage occurred, sure, but they attempt to isolate the repair to a microscopic footprint.
Right, so the source explains that the trap works like this. The insurance company will look at the damage and say, okay, we agree the wind tore off these 10 specific shingles. We will pay to replace these 10 specific shingles.
And to a stressed-out homeowner, that sounds reasonable on the surface.
Yeah, it sounds like a win. But the text points out a massive flaw in that logic. It says that a matching shingle often cannot be found due to weathering.
Which is a huge factor.
And because of that, they may legally owe you a complete roof replacement, not just a patch job. I was actually thinking about this, and the best way I can picture this visual mismatch is to imagine, like, a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh, I like that. Let's hear it.
So say you have a beautiful puzzle that's been sitting on a table in front of a sunny window for 10 years. The sun bleaches it, the dust settles into it, the colors fade completely.
It's got that old, worn look.
Right. Then your dog knocks one piece off the table and chews it up. So you write to the puzzle company, and they send you a brand new factory-fresh replacement piece.
Okay, I see where this is going.
When you snap that shiny, vibrant, brand new piece into the middle of your faded 10-year-old puzzle, I mean, yes, it technically fills the physical hole.
The puzzle is complete.
Technically, it's complete in terms of pieces. But it looks terrible. It stands out like a sore thumb. So what does this all mean for the actual definition of the word repaired? The insurance company seems to think plugging the hole is enough, while the text clearly disagrees.
The jigsaw puzzle illustrates the aesthetic problem perfectly. But honestly, the partial repair trap is far more insidious because the failure isn't just visual, it is structural.
Wait, structural? How?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, we have to look at the physical mechanics of what weathering actually does to asphalt and fiberglass roofing materials.
Okay, so what does sitting in the sun for 10 years do to a roof?
Ultraviolet light from the sun just bakes the shingles. Years of thermal shock expanding in the summer heat and contracting in the winter freeze changes their physical composition.
They get stiff.
Exactly. They lose their flexibility, they become brittle, and they physically shrink over time.
Which means replacing a shingle isn't like snapping a plastic puzzle piece into place.
Far from it. To replace those 10 missing shingles, a roofer has to physically pry up the edges of the surrounding older shingles to slide the new ones underneath and nail them down.
Oh no, I can see the problem already.
Yeah. Because those surrounding shingles have weathered and become brittle for a decade, lifting them often causes them to crack, crease, or completely lose their waterproof seal.
So just by fixing it, you're breaking it more.
Exactly. The very act of performing a partial repair inherently causes new, undocumented damage to the surrounding roof system. You're essentially trading a wind-damaged hole for a structurally compromised patch.
Wow. You're putting a Band-Aid on a wound, but ripping off the Band-Aid tears the skin around it.
That is a perfect way to describe it.
That makes the stakes so much clearer. It isn't just about having an ugly polka dot roof. It's about the fact that a patch job physically degrades the integrity of the whole system.
Which brings us to the fundamental concept of indemnification in insurance.
Indemnification, right. What does that actually guarantee us?
The entire legal purpose of holding an insurance policy is to be made whole again. You are paying to be restored to the pre-loss condition.
And a cracked patch job isn't pre-loss condition.
No, a functional destructive fix is not the same thing as a legal restoration. The source material is emphatic about this. If a match cannot be made due to weathering, or if the repair process itself would compromise the surrounding materials, a complete replacement is what is legally owed.
They owe you the whole puzzle, not just the one piece.
Exactly. The insurance company's ideal scenario, their trap, is that you will be so exhausted by the bureaucracy and so relieved to just have the initial hole covered that you will accept a $500 check for a bundle of shingles rather than fighting for the $30,000 complete roof system replacement you actually need.
And notice how the author continues that combative, highly mobilized phrasing here. They tell the reader, don't settle for less than you're owed, and direct them to get a full battle plan at claimdefend.online.
Yeah, they really hammer that home.
They really don't want you treating this like a customer service interaction at a department store. They want you treating it like a strategic, high-stakes negotiation where the opposing entity is actively trying to outmaneuver you at every single phase.
From the minute the wind stops blowing until the final check is cashed.
Exactly.
The language is purposely engineered to break through the complacency and intimidation that homeowners naturally feel when dealing with massive financial institutions. The stakes dictate the tone.
Yeah, you can't just be polite and hope for the best.
No. When $30,000 of property value is hanging in the balance, relying on the goodwill of a corporate auditor is just a failing strategy.
So to bring all these crucial pieces together for you listening, the biggest takeaways we've extracted from this deep dive really form a new set of survival rules for property ownership.
They absolutely do.
First, you have to kill the instinct that the insurance adjuster is a friendly neighborhood helper. They are a corporate auditor tasked with minimizing the company's financial exposure.
A vital realization.
Second, before anyone from the insurance company even steps onto your grass, you must execute the independent documentation protocol. Don't just snap a dark photo capture comprehensive video. Use tools that lock in unalterable EXIF metadata and build a digital timeline that cannot be disputed.
Lock down the facts.
Right. And finally, you cannot fall for the partial repair trap. Do not let them hand you a shiny new piece for your faded, brittle jigsaw puzzle and call it a day.
Because weathering means matching is often physically and structurally impossible.
Exactly. Doing it will cause further damage, and you must refuse to settle for a compromised patch job when you are legally owed a complete and total restoration. You have to arm yourself with a battle plan.
It demands a total paradigm shift in how we approach recovery and our rights as policyholders. And, this raises an important question that goes far beyond just shingles and storm damage.
Oh, what are you thinking?
Well, think strictly about this concept of weathering and matching. The idea that a functional patch that leaves you worse off is not a true restoration. If the law dictates that a single weathered, mismatched shingle warrants the complete replacement of an entire roof to maintain systemic integrity, where else in our lives are we accepting this?
That's a fascinating way to look at it.
Right. In other types of complex systems and agreements, where else are we passively accepting incomplete, destructive patch jobs? How often do we let massive institutions convince us that a functional, ugly fix is the absolute best we deserve, when in reality, the underlying contract guarantees us a complete and total restoration?
Wow. That is a thought that will definitely stick with you long after the wind dies down. Next time you look out the window after a storm and see pieces of your home on the lawn, remember, don't just pick up the phone and wait. Your property, your timeline, and your reality are up to you to document and defend. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.